Hi, Rob. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
I'm going to leave it over to you to start giving your presentation.
Okay. So hopefully you can see that now. So I'm Professor Rob Middleton. I'm Professor of Orthopaedics and Head of Orthopaedic Research Institute at Bournemouth University, and also a consultant orthopaedic surgeon at University Hospitals Dorset. And I'm going to speak to you about the road ahead. I'm going to talk about partnerships with universities, government bodies, both national and regional, and industry that leads to success in bringing products and services to market. I'm going to use my example to show you how it can be done and how it can be successful, and also my vision of how we can make the UK a global leader in medtech in the future. So my story begins in about 5 years ago, in 2015, when I set up the Orthopaedic Research Institute at Bournemouth University. I think the first thing to say is medtech is a tool, it's not a goal. And our goal was that we believed that no one should suffer from arthritis, and that's what drove us. And it also determined our aims, that we wish to promote healthy lives for all, data analytics for better health, to support healthcare improvements, and to make health services more sustainable, and to improve national health and care policy. So the question was how we'd get there, and the plan was to find funding to build capacity, to generate knowledge and accelerate impact by building a state-of-the-art research centre. Having built that centre, we wanted to generate the research that would allow us to work with external partners to make a bigger difference. And so that was essentially industry funding, and then using successful products and services to inform local action and national policy to achieve our goal. And we were successful in 2015, and we set up our research centre at Bournemouth University, but it came about because of partnerships. Big thanks go to the AHSN network that supported the original business case and gave initial research and project grants. The Dorset LEP came in with funding for the building and capital equipment, and match funding came from Bournemouth University, providing internal funding, running costs, staff, and governance. And we built an incredible research and development centre, and I'll just pick out two elements you can see at the top. We brought in visual and augmented reality labs, and this is a surgeon performing spinal surgery, and we supported the NHS during COVID by continuing to train their surgeons when surgery was suspended. Below, we've got the gate lab. This is one of the best gate labs in the world. Our feeling was that if we provided the equipment at a world-class level, that we would attract the research and investment there. So once the centre was built, the question is, could we develop the research? And the answer was we could. We worked from data analytics through AI to robotics. We looked at low-tech solutions. We looked at high-tech solutions. So let's look at three of those aspects. The first one is that we used our gait lab and physiology lab to look at human exercise and movement. And we came up with a theory that we could improve the lives of people with arthritic hips through a specific exercise program. That developed into a program called Chain, and we worked with University Hospitals Dorset to develop that. And we showed after a 6-week course, 80% of people had a significant improvement in their pain and function, such that they didn't need to go ahead with a hip replacement. And subsequent studies have shown at 5 years, 60% of people had avoided surgery. We were interested in transfer boards. How do patients with disabilities, particularly arthritic joints, get from a wheelchair to a seat? And we're also interested in robotics. How could we bring robotics to our local hospitals? So the question is, does that research lead to grant funding? And the answer is that it does. Since 2015, we have been awarded grant funding of over £3.5 million to support our projects. So let's look at those three examples again. The chain program looking at exercise to treat osteoarthritis of the hip. We were awarded a grant of £350,000 by the National Institute for Healthcare Research. That project is being run between Bournemouth University and University Hospitals Dorset to see if our programme is better than standard NHS care. If it is, then that project will be rolled out across the country. As I say, we've seen £9 million of savings locally in Dorset from it. That could lead to hundreds of millions of pounds of saving within the NHS as a whole. Our interest in transfer boards led to partnering with Buckingham Healthcare, a local company, and together we applied for Innovate UK grant and got grant funding of £643,000. That led to the development of the glide board that is now in production and is on worldwide sale. So it shows that good ideas do turn into products. And then finally, we look at robotics. Because we had the best gait lab in the world in Bournemouth University, Stryker was persuaded to put one of its first orthopedic robots in Europe into the Bournemouth Nuffield Hospital. And following its implementation there, Stryker awarded Bournemouth University 2 grants totaling £386,000 to research what the outcomes of surgery were in the gait lab. We've also worked with companies around the UK. We worked with a company called First Direct, which produced the Gecko device. And the Gecko device is a neuromuscular stimulator. So it's a small device that sticks to the skin. In this instance, it's being used near the knee. It stimulates the nerves and can improve circulation, healing leg ulcers, reducing edema and swelling, and preventing DVT. Working with that company, we obtained grants of £1.3 million to develop the product. We produced 5 research papers supporting the safety and effectiveness of that product. And this led to FDA in America and NICE approval in the UK for it to be sold as a medical device. And that secured the company its first £1 million order overseas. Going back to robotic surgery, the placement of one of the first European robots in the Bournemouth Nuffield Hospital has led to it being the largest robotic hip surgery unit in Europe, and that developed from scratch within 4 years. That has led to revenues in excess of £7 million coming into the hospital and the local area. So what we're seeing is a circle of perpetual growth, developing a research medtech complex in Dorset. So that initial investment in a research and development centre led to research that caused medtech device development. It then attracted industry and government funding, and that led to commercial success, both in products and services. We then managed to get multinational funding and to complete the circle. And in some instances, if we look at robotics, we've been around that circle more than twice. As I say, we finish one study, the companies upgrade their software and wish to repeat that study. So that's an example of regional success, how you can collaborate with universities, government bodies and industry to develop your medtech device. But also we say, can we move things forward such that we can make Britain into a global leader in this field? And I said to do that, we need to supersize growth. So what we need to do is we need to predict where the growth is going to be. And we've heard from the first keynote speaker that medical robotics is one of the biggest areas in healthcare. And if we look at medical robotics, the area that is the biggest part of that is hip and knee replacement. Those 2 operations are the 2 commonest operations performed in the world today, and it's a $20 billion market a year, and there is compound growth of 4% each year. Both the industry and the professions predict that 75% of hip and knee replacements will be robotic by the end of the decade. So as robotic joint replacement probably represents less than 1% of joint replacements today, within 8 years, we will see a $15 billion a year market developing. And that market's going to be driven by new robots, artificial intelligence, data-driven efficiencies. So the new robots will be coming online over the next couple of years, and those will be paid for by AI-driven efficiencies. So if we look at projected AI theatres that will have multiple feeds, we estimate from our modelling that they will be able to achieve 60% efficiencies over our current theatres. That means that those efficiencies will pay for the additional cost of robotics and more. It will enable robotic joint replacement to move from the private sector to the NHS. It will allow it to move from the developed world to the developing world. And in all probability, at the end of the decade, it will not be economic not to do a robotic joint replacement. So the question is this supersize growth possible? Well, it is, and I would contend to you that Dorset is one of the ideal places for that growth to occur because we have people, place and timing. In terms of people, we've got the oldest UK population, so we have a large market for hip and knee replacement, so the market is there. We also have the largest socio-economic divide in the country, and that is one of the healthcare issues that we wish to solve. We've got the richest area in the country in terms of sandbanks, which has got the most expensive waterfront property in the world, and we've also got areas of deprivation. Place, we already have the largest robotic centre in Europe, and we've got a world-class research facility at the Orthopaedic Research Institute at Bournemouth University. And the timing's right. There is a new generation of robots due to launch in the next few years. These will need testing, they will need research, and the future are the AI possibilities that help direct improvements to patient care and theatre, hospital and efficiency. So, is this goal realistic? Can we really become a global leader in medtech and in particular in orthopaedic robots? Well, I will argue that we can because we were that leader in the past. This paper that I wrote in 1997 with collaborators in London set the theory behind modern orthopaedic robots and produced the first prototype. I think the first thing to note is that this was a collaboration between Imperial College, a university, and the Middlesex Hospital, a healthcare facility. And it came out with the theory behind the current robots. To be acceptable, we said that the robots would need to be safe, they would need to be acceptable to patients and surgeons. And that meant that the surgeon would need to do actively every part of the operation, but the robot would need to prevent the surgeon from making mistakes. Now, I performed a robotic hip replacement yesterday, and I did every part of the operation myself, but through feedback loops, the robot guided me and prevented me making an error of more than 1 degree or 1 millimeter. And that has proved to be the basis of all successful orthopaedic robots today. Also, Imperial College produced a prototype robot, which was tested in the Middlesex Hospital. So the theory and original prototypes of the current robots in the world were a UK invention. Unfortunately, in the 1990s, there wasn't the funding available to universities or to healthcare facilities to develop that into a product and a service that could be sold. And that robot called the Acrobot was sold to an American company who then did the commercialization of it, eventually selling it to a multinational for $1.7 billion. That's right, just for the design of a robot, it sold it for $1.7 billion. That robot is showing growth of about 19% a year in terms of market share. So the question going forward is, can the UK box clever in the future and take its concepts, its theories through to actual products that can be solved? So this is the issue that I'm confronted with at the moment. This is my theatre. In this theatre, we have done more robotic hip replacements than any theatre in Europe. There's my robot, the design of which was sold for $1.7 billion. But if you notice, that theatre is about 30 to 40 years old. I started working in it in 1999, and there have been no significant changes. There's no internet connection. So although we've done very well in establishing a robotics centre in Bournemouth to deliver the next generation of robots, to deliver the AI efficiencies that are required to bring the cost down so it's available to everyone, we need the state-of-the-art robotic hospital. We are lucky in that we partnered with Bournemouth Nuffield Health, which is a not-for-profit making chain of hospitals in the UK, who any surpluses they reinvest into healthcare. And as a group, they are happy to consider reinvesting their surpluses into building a new hospital. But to build a state-of-the-art AI-enabled robotics theatre is beyond them. So they will need to find partners to do that. So what I would conclude with, that the road ahead is clear. We've got clear evidence that partnerships in the UK between universities, government funding, and industry is successful. I think what we've done here in Dorset and in Bournemouth in particular is repeatable around the country. And I think there is a real chance in this country that if we can take our ideas and prototypes to the market, then there is no reason why the United Kingdom cannot be a global leader in medical tech. Thank you very much.